Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at Ceinsys Tech Ltd, and we're going to be focusing specifically on their Q2 results for fiscal year 2025. We've got a pretty good stack of reports here. We've got the earnings presentation with all the visuals and all that good stuff. We've got the press release that was put out that announces the results and a couple of keyboard decisions. And then, of course, we have the standalone and the consolidated financial results that include the auditor reviews. So it's, we've got all the information here, and the mission of this deep dive is to really pull out the juiciest insights that you, the listener, really need to know. And there's some pretty interesting stuff in here. I mean, right off the bat, looking at this earnings presentation, their order book exceeds INR 12 billion, and they just made an acquisition in the U.S. telecom sector. So there's a lot to unpack here. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's maybe take a step back. For those who might not be, super familiar with this company, can you give us a quick overview of who Ceinsys Tech Ltd is and what they do?
Yeah, so Ceinsys has been around for a while, actually. They were founded in 1998 by the Mega Group, and initially they started by offering technology solutions across a variety of different domains. But they've evolved quite a bit since those early days. They're now really a premier provider of geospatial and engineering solutions.
Okay, geospatial and engineering. So that makes me think that they're probably doing a lot of work maybe with infrastructure and, things like that.
You're exactly right. They're very much focused on those sectors. Things like utilities, natural resources, really any industry where location data and technology can be used to solve complex problems.
Interesting. And it sounds like they're not limiting themselves to just the Indian market.
No, not at all. They
Yeah.
actually have quite a global footprint. In addition to their headquarters in India, they've got offices in the United States, the United Kingdom, and Germany as well.
Wow, that's impressive. So they're really competing on an international stage.
They are.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that reflected in their revenue breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
In the first half of fiscal year 2025, 81% of their revenue came from domestic projects, which is a good chunk, of course.
Yeah.
But 19% was generated from international ventures. So they're clearly making inroads globally.
Yeah, 19% is nothing to sneeze at. That shows they're successfully navigating, the complexities of the global market. Now, to really understand a company, you've got to understand where their money comes from. So what are their primary business segments, and how do they contribute to their overall revenue?
Sure. So they operate in two main segments. The first is geospatial and engineering services,
Okay.
which brought in a pretty hefty 59% of their revenue in the first half of fiscal year 2025.
So that's the lion's share right there.
It is.
Yeah.
And think of things like designing water networks, analyzing electrical grids, using geospatial data, that sort of thing.
Very cool. And what about the other segment?
The second segment is technology solutions, and that accounts for the remaining 41% of their revenue.
Got it. So it's a pretty balanced split.
It is. Although it's interesting to note that all of their revenue from the technology solutions segment is actually generated domestically.
Oh, that is interesting. So that gives us a little glimpse into maybe their strategic focus within India.
Exactly.
So they're working on projects both in India and around the world using their expertise in geospatial and engineering solutions to solve some pretty, complex challenges. But who are their clients? Like, what kind of organizations are we talking about?
Well, they've got a really diverse client base, which I think speaks to their capabilities. They work with large corporations, original equipment manufacturers or OEMs, asset management companies, and even government bodies.
Oh, wow. So they're really hitting all of the major sectors.
Yeah, they've positioned themselves as a trusted partner for a really wide range of organizations.
It sounds like they've built a very solid foundation. But in the tech world, standing still can be risky. So have they made any moves to kind of adapt and expand into new areas?
Oh, absolutely. They've been quite proactive.
Like what?
Well, back in fiscal year 2022, they made a strategic acquisition of Allegro Technologies,
Okay.
and that allowed them to tap into the booming mobility services sector.
Ah, very smart. So they're not just sticking to what they know, they're branching out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they've also formed a new vertical called Meg Next, which is focused on developing products for some really exciting and futuristic fields,
Ooh, like what?
like the metaverse,
Okay.
edtech, gaming, and even more mobility solutions.
So they're really setting themselves up to be major players in these emerging technologies.
It certainly seems that way.
Okay, well, let's shift gears a bit and talk numbers. What were the key highlights from their Q2 and first half of fiscal year 2025? What really stood out to you?
I think the most striking thing is their growth trajectory.
Okay.
Over the past 3 years, their revenue has grown at a compounded annual growth rate of 11%.
So they're not just growing, they're growing at an accelerating pace.
Precisely. And in Q2 of FY25 alone, the revenue jumped to INR 900 million,
900 million.
which is a 54% increase compared to the same period last year.
Whoa, that's a pretty remarkable jump.
It is. It suggests they've found a formula that's really resonating with their clients.
Yeah, they're clearly capitalizing on market opportunities. But revenue's only part of the story, right? What about their profitability? Are they actually turning that revenue into profit?
Well, this is where things get really interesting.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Their profit after tax, or P, has grown at an astonishing compounded annual growth rate of 160% over the past 3 years.
Wait, 160%?
Yes, 160%. So their ability to generate profit is growing at an incredible pace.
That's mind-blowing. What's driving that kind of growth?
It seems like their strategic investments and expansion efforts are paying off. They've made some savvy acquisitions like the one we discussed earlier, Allegro Technologies, and they also acquired assets from a US-based geospatial company in July 2024, which expanded their reach in the telecom sector.
Okay, so they're not afraid to make bold moves.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
And in addition to acquisitions, they've been investing in data center capabilities and, of course, their new Megnex vertical.
Right, so it's a combination of organic and inorganic growth.
Exactly. They're clearly thinking long-term.
And it sounds like it's paying off. Now, have they managed to secure any major contracts recently that could contribute to this positive momentum?
Absolutely. They've landed some really significant projects. One that stands out is a massive INR 2,060 million Dorian project for the Maharashtra State Water and Sanitation Mission,
Wow.
also known as SWSM.
Okay, Maharashtra State Water and Sanitation Mission.
This project involves implementing an Internet of Things or IoT-based solution to manage water resources more effectively.
So very much in line with their expertise.
Absolutely. They've also secured a INR 600 million project to develop a digital project monitoring system for the Maharashtra SWSM.
Okay, so another big win there.
And to top it off, they've secured an extension on a third-party inspection, or TPI project, for the Uttar Pradesh SWSM.
Got it, Uttar Pradesh.
And that one's worth INR 1,960 million.
So we're talking about some serious contracts here.
We are. These wins really demonstrate their ability to secure large-scale projects, and it shows that their reputation in the industry is growing.
Okay, so they're clearly on a roll, securing major contracts, expanding their reach. But what about the future? Where does Ceinsys see themselves going from here? What's their game plan for continued growth?
Well, their future growth strategy is multifaceted, but the core remains the same: innovation and expansion.
Makes sense.
In their geospatial and engineering services vertical, or GIS vertical as they call it,
Okay.
they're investing heavily in cutting-edge technologies like GeoAI spatial analytics, digital twins, and even augmented reality and virtual reality, or AR/VR.
Wow, so they're really at the forefront of technology.
They are, and they're smartly tapping into India's booming geospatial market, which is projected to see significant growth in the coming years.
Yeah, it sounds like they're really positioning themselves to be leaders in that space.
They are.
Now, they're also active in the manufacturing vertical, right? What's their strategy in that arena?
In manufacturing, they're laser-focused on the rapidly expanding electric vehicle, or EV ecosystem.
EV's hot topic these days.
It is. And they're also capitalizing on the global surge in automotive engineering research and development, or ER&D spending.
Okay, so they're riding the wave of innovation in the automotive industry.
Exactly. And their earlier acquisition of Allegro Technologies has given them a head start in this domain.
Very smart. So it's a combination of organic growth and strategic acquisitions, all fueled by a commitment to staying ahead of the curve in terms of technology.
That's a great way to put it.
It seems like a recipe for continued success. But are there any other key elements to their growth strategy?
Yeah, they're also not shying away from making further acquisitions in the geospatial manufacturing and technology sectors.
Okay, so more acquisitions on the horizon.
Potentially. And they're also strategically aligning themselves with key government initiatives in India,
Oh, interesting. Like what?
like programs like the National Infrastructure Pipeline, or NIP,
Okay.
the Jal Jeevan Mission, and the Namami Gange program.
So they're really tapping into these large-scale initiatives.
They are. These initiatives open up a lot of doors for growth
Yeah.
and allow them to contribute to India's development.
While also expanding their business.
Exactly. It's a win-win.
Now, I'm always impressed by companies that are not only financially successful, but also making a tangible difference in the world. Are there any intriguing facts about Ceinsys' work that might surprise our listeners? What kind of impact are they having?
Well, get this. They've designed and implemented over 31,000 miles of water networks.
31,000 miles.
That's right. That's longer than the circumference of the Earth.
Wow, that's incredible. What else?
They've also processed and analyzed over 88,000 miles of electrical networks,
Jeez.
which highlights their expertise in managing critical infrastructure. And to give you a sense of the scale of their data analysis capabilities, they've worked with over 650,000 miles of high-resolution image data
650,000 miles of image data.
to gather business intelligence.
Those are some serious numbers.
They are. It's clear they're not just crunching numbers, they're using data to make a real-world impact.
Yeah, they're definitely walking the walk. Now, we've covered a lot of ground here, from their impressive financial performance to their strategic acquisitions and their commitment to innovation.
Indeed, Ceinsys is clearly a company to watch, and they're showing no signs of slowing down.
So let's take a closer look at their Q2 results and really dissect what these numbers mean. What are some specific financial details that jumped out at you? What should our listener be paying attention to?
Well, aside from the strong revenue and profit figures that we already talked about, their total order book has surpassed INR 12 billion,
Okay, 12 billion.
which is, it's a significant indicator of future revenue
Yeah.
because it represents the value of contracts they've already secured but haven't yet fully executed.
Right, so it's like a pipeline of projects that are already in the bag.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tells us they've got a lot of work lined up, which is, a really good sign for continued growth.
Yeah, 12 billion in the order book. That's a healthy pipeline. Can you break that down a bit? What's the split between their two main segments?
Sure. So geospatial and engineering services make up the majority of their order book. It's about 76% of the total,
Okay.
while technology solutions represent the remaining 24%.
Got it.
And what's interesting here is that they've been actively pursuing higher margin projects.
Okay, so they're being selective.
Exactly. They're not just going after any contract that comes their way. They're prioritizing projects that will yield greater profits.
That makes sense. Focusing on high-value projects can be a really smart strategy for maximizing profitability. But what about their cash flow? Are they effectively managing their finances to support this growth?
Well, this is where we see some impressive financial management. They've significantly improved their working capital cycle.
Oh, okay, working capital cycle.
Now, I know that might sound a little jargony,
Yeah.
but essentially it measures how efficiently a company converts its investments in inventory and other resources into cash flow from sales.
Okay, so it's all about efficiency.
Exactly. Back in March 2023, their working capital cycle was 237 days,
Okay.
but they've managed to shrink that down to 108 days by September 2024.
Wow, that's a pretty dramatic improvement.
It is. A shorter working capital cycle is a good thing.
Okay, why is that?
Well, it indicates greater efficiency in financial health. It means they have more liquidity to invest in growth opportunities, or pay down debt, or even reward shareholders.
Got it. So they're basically getting much faster at turning their investments into cash,
Exactly.
which frees up more money to reinvest in the business.
Exactly.
Now, speaking of shareholders, did Ceinsys raise any additional capital recently?
They did.
Yeah.
In the second quarter of FY25, they raised INR 2,350 million
Okay, 2,350 million.
through a combination of fresh equity, meaning they issued new shares,
Hmm.
and share warrants, which give investors the right to buy shares at a specific price in the future.
Okay, so they brought in some outside investment.
Exactly. And this influx of capital is intended to support both organic growth initiatives, like expanding their existing operations, and inorganic growth, which could involve further acquisitions.
So they're really gearing up for expansion.
They are.
What's their cash position looking like after this fundraising?
As of September 30th, 2024, they had a total cash surplus of INR 1,719 million.
Okay.
And what's impressive is that INR 684 million of that surplus came directly from their operations.
So their core business is generating a lot of cash.
Exactly. This puts them in a very strong financial position.
Yeah, healthy reserves are always a good sign, especially in, uncertain economic times.
Now, we know they have two main business segments, geospatial and engineering services and technology solutions. How did each of these segments perform in Q2?
Well, their geospatial and engineering services segment had a particularly strong showing in Q2 of FY25, with revenue surging to INR 543 million.
This is a significant jump compared to both the previous quarter, where they brought in INR 421 million, and the same quarter of the previous fiscal year, where they generated INR 518 million.
Wow, so they're seeing really strong growth in that segment. What were the main drivers behind that?
Well, it seems their efforts to, deliver value-added projects, command better margins, and improve operational efficiency have really paid off. They've managed to handle higher volumes of work. while maintaining or even improving their profitability.
So they're scaling effectively.
Exactly.
Now, what about their technology solutions segment? Do they experience similar growth?
Actually, the technology solutions segment experienced a slight dip in revenue, dropping to INR 314 million in Q2 of FY25.
Right.
This is down from INR 355 million in the same quarter of the previous year and INR 314 million in the previous quarter of FY25.
A dip in revenue is always something to take note of. Do the reports offer any insights into what might have caused this decline?
Unfortunately, the reports don't really delve into specific reasons for the dip in the technology solutions segment. It's worth noting, though, that unlike their geospatial and engineering services, this segment is entirely focused on the domestic market.
Right.
So it could be influenced by factors specific to the Indian economy or competitive landscape.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It'll be interesting to see how this segment performs in the coming quarters.
Yeah, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Now, in addition to the parent company Ceinsys Tech Ltd, they also have subsidiaries that contribute to their overall operations. How are these subsidiaries performing, and what role are they playing in Ceinsys' growth story?
One subsidiary that's particularly noteworthy is Alligram Technologies, PLTD.
Alligram Technologies.
They've been actively investing in business development, both organically by expanding their existing operations and inorganically through acquisitions.
Okay, so they're on the move.
They are. They spent approximately INR 63 million in the first half of FY25 on these initiatives.
That's a significant investment. Do we know where they're focusing their efforts? What kind of acquisitions are they pursuing?
Well, the reports don't provide specific details about their target acquisitions, but it's clear that Alligram is looking to expand its reach and capabilities, likely in areas that align with Ceinsys' overall growth strategy.
So strategically aligned acquisitions.
Exactly. And these investments, while potentially impacting the subsidiary's profitability in the short term, are likely to yield long-term benefits for the entire group.
Yeah, it sounds like they're taking a long-term view, investing in areas that could fuel future growth. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about the bigger picture. We've seen that Ceinsys is performing well financially, they've secured major contracts, and they're making strategic moves to expand their business. But what potential challenges do you see on the horizon for them?
That's a great question, because no business operates in a vacuum. And even companies as successful as Ceinsys face challenges.
Of course.
I think one potential challenge is the increasing competition in the geospatial and engineering solutions market.
Okay, competition.
Both established players and new entrants are vying for market share, which could put pressure on Ceinsys' pricing power and margins.
So how can they stay ahead of the curve in this increasingly competitive environment?
Well, they need to continue investing in research and development, pushing the boundaries of innovation and developing unique solutions. That set them apart from the competition.
So keep innovating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They've already demonstrated their ability to do this, but they can't afford to become complacent.
Right.
They need to constantly adapt to stay ahead of the technology curve.
Yeah, complacency can be dangerous, especially in the fast-paced tech world. What other challenges might they encounter as they continue to grow?
I think another potential hurdle is talent acquisition and retention.
Okay, talent.
As they expand, they'll need to attract and retain top-tier talent, especially in specialized fields like GeoAI and spatial analytics.
Right. Finding the right people is crucial.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The competition for skilled professionals is fierce, so they'll need to offer competitive salaries benefits and a work environment that fosters innovation and growth.
Yeah, it's definitely a candidate-driven market these days. Companies need to go the extra mile to attract and retain top talent. Are there any other factors that could pose a challenge for Ceinsys?
I think it's important to remember that they operate in a globalized world,
Right?
which means they're exposed to geopolitical risks and economic fluctuations.
Ah, the global landscape.
Exactly. Sudden shifts in trade policies, currency fluctuations, or even political instability in key markets could impact their bottom line.
So managing those global risks effectively will be crucial.
Absolutely.
It sounds like Ceinsys has a lot on their plate, but they also have a lot of potential.
They do. They seem to be navigating a complex landscape with a lot of moving parts.
Any final thoughts you'd like to leave our listeners with? What's the big takeaway here?
Well, I think what's most impressive about Ceinsys is their willingness to embrace change and really push the boundaries of what's possible. They're not just reacting to industry trends, they're actively shaping the future. Their strategic acquisitions, their commitment to innovation, and their focus on emerging technologies. I think it makes them a fascinating case study in how a company can achieve remarkable growth in such a dynamic and competitive landscape.
I agree. It's inspiring to see a company like Ceinsys leveraging technology to not only achieve financial success, but also make a positive impact on the world. So there you have it, folks, our deep dive into the world of Ceinsys Tech Ltd. We've explored their strong Q2 FY25 results, examined their strategic approach, and considered both the opportunities and challenges that lie ahead for them. Remember, this is just a snapshot in time. The business world is constantly evolving, so it's essential to stay informed and keep learning. Until next time, happy investing.